Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marshall Gimple. I'm the immediate past president of the congregation. My pronouns are he, him, his. Today I'm wearing a dark suit, white shirt, gold tie. I have beard on my face, not much hair on the top of my head, wearing glasses, and I am a light-skinned older man. Welcome to First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness, no matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming. We welcome you today in love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who's watching us on YouTube this morning. During the prelude, please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're in OKC, what neighborhood are you in? Or if you're elsewhere, what city are you in? And now, the prelude prepares us for worship. We have today a very special chalice lighter, our very own Ibuka Iziakaka, and today is his birthday. So somebody, not me, is going to lead us in happy birthday. And just as a reminder, we light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
And again, welcome. I am Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And for those in our community who are blind or visually impaired, I am a white woman with pinky silver hair, and today I am wearing my beloved installation stole with symbols of Unitarian Universalism and of the sky and land and indigenous heritage of Oklahoma. So it's a very special one for me. Our ushers today are members of First Unitarian Voice. Voice is organized in civic engagement. Voice is a coalition of dues-paying congregations, nonprofits, workers' organizations, and schools that have come together out of a deep sense of mission and concern about the pressures families face in the Oklahoma City metropolitan area. And if you would like more information about Voice, please contact Maureen Harvey, who is sitting right here. Just a few days ago, our pagan siblings celebrated the holiday of Imbolc, which on the wheel of the year marks the midpoint between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox. Imbolc is the holiday sacred to Brigid, a pan-Celtic goddess who is at once modern and ancient, both a triple goddess and unique unto herself, and the springtime antagonist to the Cailleach, who you may remember I spoke about a while before, and also just the Cailleach, the winter crone, in another guise. An archetypal force in many ways, she is that longing for spring that so many of us feel at this time of the winter. She's the bearer of snowdrops and other flowers that emerge without fear of the cold. She's the figure of inspiration, of poetry, and of healing. And so in honor of this sacred keeper of the flame, we begin our service today with these words by Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn, who is the President and Executive Director of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. She writes, from the light of days remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, that our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. Please rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn. It's in the teal softbound hymnal, number 1018, an African American spiritual, Come and Go With Me. And please sing this with joy.
There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom. just a snap. Justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. Now we're gonna sing. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. Hold it, hold it. Where I'm bound. Woo!
Hello. I am Lori Jervis. I am chair of the Committee on Ministry, and I'm a Euro-American woman wearing a black top. The function of the Committee on Ministry is to monitor on a regular and continuing basis the effectiveness of the church's ministry, acknowledging and praising areas of strength and assessing the reasons behind perceived weaknesses or dissatisfaction, so that we as a congregation can grow into our full potential and fulfill our mission. If you have any questions about the role of the Committee on Ministry, or you have concerns, praise, or ideas about the ministries of the church, you're welcome to reach out to a member of the Committee on Ministry. That would be me. I don't know who's here today, but if you're here, raise your hand. Rebecca Daniels, Tom Piriam, Liz Pillar-Little. Uh-oh, no one's here but me. Derek Wagner, Suzanne Broadbent, and John Schneider. There's John over there. Every Sunday we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For the month of February, our Change for Change partner is Exodus House. The Exodus House is a key part of Criminal Justice and Mercy Ministries. Its mission is to offer opportunities for ex-offenders to have a healthy, nurturing, and accountable environment where they may begin their life again. For those of you who are in the sanctuary with us today, in just a moment we'll be passing the offering plate. We know that many of you prefer to mail in a check or make your donations to Change for Change online. You can always make your gift by mailing a check to First Unitarian. Just write Change for Change on the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, oneuc.org.
Every valley shall be exalted.
In January and February, we are in the midst of our annual pledge drive, and so we're hearing from members telling us what this congregation means to them, why they make an annual pledge to First Unitarian. And here with us this morning is Susan Bishop, Chair of our Social Justice Committee, and so many other things.
Good morning. Good morning. What attracted me to this church was not the fact that it reminded me of one of the churches I attended as a young adolescent. That church was the Barrington, Rhode Island Congregational Church. And this church looks very much like it, but like I said, that was not the reason, that's not what attracted me. From my very first experience sitting in the back pew in the corner trying to be inconspicuous, I was impressed and, yes, dumbfounded that this church gave away its offering to a program called Change for Change. You've already heard about this month's recipient. Even if I couldn't participate with that month's recipient, I could still contribute to the work that they did in the form of a monetary gift. That was the first time I witnessed a church regularly involved in the arena of social justice, and I was hooked. I joined the Social Justice Committee, where a small group of people met and they discussed the logistics of participating in an upcoming Pride Parade. I was surprised to learn that First Unitarian Church was involved with Pride from its very inception back in the 80s. To discover that this church also participated in Martin Luther King Day celebrations did not surprise me. I began to notice all the ways social justice themes were interwoven into the very work of this church, whether it was selling free trade coffee, teas, and chocolates to support the Sustainable Living Organization focused on environmental concerns, or marching with banners proclaiming our love for the too often disenfranchised. First Unitarian stood on its principles locally through the efforts of Voice and internationally through the UU Service Committee. What attracts me to this church? All the voices raised in unison when we see injustices happening. All the hands coming together to fill backpacks or make signs or sell coffee. All the bodies showing up at rallies, workshops, marches, Gypsy Cafe night, purchasing t-shirts, staffing special events. Well, I could go on and on. The work of justice feeds my soul, and I hope it feeds yours as well. What attracts me to this church is you, the work that we do together. Thank you.
Good morning. As you, thank you. It's been a while. My birthday has been on a Sunday, so this particular Sunday is a very special one. The anthem we're going to sing today, that this beautiful choir is going to sing today, I composed it. As most of you know, I'm a conductor, and I'm getting my doctorate degree in choral conducting, but I'm also a composer. And I composed this song in 2019, precisely September 5th, 2019. Why that date? That was the day my son was born. And of course, it's like any other birth, but the circumstances surrounding my son's birth is one that I want to share with you so that you can understand the backstory to this song. In Nigeria, let me not assume I am from Nigeria. And being from Nigeria in West Africa, there are certain things that are different from the society in America. One of which is the access to good health care and also certain genetic predispositions. And so, I don't know how many of you have heard of the sickness called sickle cell. Sickle cell is predominant with people who are of pigmented, as we say, colored people, especially black people, more especially Africans. And so, for a sickle cell person to be born, the parents of the person both have to be carriers of the sickle cell genome. I am a carrier of that sickle cell genome. My wife is a carrier of the sickle cell genome. So, typically, my genotype is AS. My wife's genotype is AS. And so the science dictates that when two AS people get married and have kids, there's a 75% chance that all of their kids will be sickle cell. And so it's no longer a thing of lack of medical access or genetic predisposition, but in Nigeria, it is now a thing of ostracization, discrimination, and you have people who will totally discriminate against people like me who are sickle cell carriers. My wife was not the first girl I dated, but the previous girls I dated broke up with me because I was AS. And so, part of the reasons why I'm grateful for the birth of my son is because I am primarily grateful for my wife who took the risk of saying yes to me and marrying me. She saw me beyond my genetics. We saw each other beyond what science said. We saw each other simply out of love. And we took that bold step. We didn't tell our families though. We didn't tell most of our families, but we told our parents. Her parents refused because I have a sister-in-law who is a sickle cell person. So you would think that if there's one person who would understand that two sickle cell carriers shouldn't get married, it should be my wife. But she said, no, I see this man beyond genetics. Just as we profess in this congregation that love should know no bounds, my wife and I, our story is the epitome of that, which is part of the reasons why I connect strongly with this congregation. And as fate would have it, our son is not even a carrier. And so, when he was born, the first thing we did was to check for his genotype. And after that, we realized that we can actually find out the genotype of the child before the child is born. And so, currently, we are 26 weeks old. And this coming child is not a sickle cell child. This just goes to show that beyond science, love goes beyond science, love goes beyond society, love goes beyond reality. And so, being of Christian background at the time, maybe now, I don't know, but being of Christian background at the time, I couldn't fathom words of gratitude, and so I looked into the Christian Bible and I saw the first part I opened was Psalm 105, and it says, give praise to the Lord. Well, this is a different text, but the text that I used was, give praise to the Lord, proclaim his name, make known among the nations what he has done, sing to him, sing praise to him, tell of his wonderful works, glory in his holy name. Let the heart of those who seek the Lord rejoice. And then I added an hallelujah to it. And so, I figured, what time better to put out this song than on my birthday, remembering my son's birthday. And so I give to you the world premiere of a Thanksgiving motet called Give Praise to the Lord, to be premiered by our delectable, special, talented, wonderful 1UC choir.
Okay, I can't follow that very well. I'm still kind of weeping from Ibuka's story. So if this reflection gets a little disjointed, forgive me. We are all, I think, in some measure, a product of our experiences, especially our childhood experiences, at a time when we're so impressionable. Now, I grew up in a place that was ethnically diverse, and there were a lot of immigrant people there of all different types and from all different countries. And they had a particular perspective on life in the United States that I had access to. For one thing, they could compare this country with wherever it was they came from. And that point of reference made a difference not only to them, but to those with whom they interacted in this country, including me. In addition, they seem to have an innate understanding of just how fragile democracy is. And they realized that with rights, the rights they had in this country, came obligations and responsibilities. And they knew that you could not have one without the other. The other thing about my childhood, which was pertinent to today, I guess, is that I'm a child of the civil rights era, or just after the heyday of the civil rights era. So I got to see in my youth, as a little boy, a lot of people from different communities coming together under one banner for one cause, because they realized that that cause, in this case, civil rights for Black Americans, was their cause. Those rights were their rights. The obligations to secure those rights for every single American was their obligation. I also saw the power of numbers, that enough people coming together, aligned appropriately, could make a difference. And where I came from, people like me had small voices, not just because I was little, but I mean in my community. People like me weren't going to stand out in the crowd. We weren't going to be noticed. But here was a way, by coming together, that you could be heard, you could be seen, you could be listened to, you could avoid being ignored. And so that too gave me a foundation for other things in my life. And those experiences, of course, inform and color the way I view things today. And so for me, when I look around the country, these are difficult times. When I look at the world, these are difficult times. Death, destruction, and decline seem to stalk the world. Despair, divisiveness, dysfunction seem to be on the rise. And even in this country, the hallowed home of democracy, democracy itself seems to be up for grabs amidst the politics of grievance. And so for me, with this kind of view of the world today, it strikes me that this church was built for times like this, times of testing and trauma, because this church rests on the solid foundations of Unitarianism and Universalism. Both these denominations focused not on an afterlife, but on their lives here on earth. Both came to believe that they would not be measured by the level of their devotion to a deity, but by the impact of their actions on this earth. Both asserted that they would be judged ultimately not by the Almighty, but by their own posterity. So for me, this church was built for action. The doors of this sanctuary open outwards. They invite us to engage actively with the world. The windows of this sanctuary are clear glass. They invite us to perceive the light and the beauty of the world, but they insist that we see it as it really is. Now, we've said in this service, and we say in every service, the burning chalice represents the light and heat of reason, community, justice, hope. But for me, it represents something else as well. It represents the fire of the forge, the space where the tools of action, of change, of making a difference are hammered out, are tempered, and are honed. Now, a forge, and the forge of places like this, are places of amazing power, but they require great strength to operate. They need the strength of the entire congregation working in tandem to manage the bellows, to hammer out the tools of progress on the anvil. Only a congregation united in faith, faith in each other, faith in the strength of their desire to come together and stand together, and faith in their ability to change the world can fashion the tools needed to deal with these dangerous times. And so special times for me call for special measures. And in my opinion, it is time for the many voices, the many good, pure voices of this congregation to be joined together in one voice that may be lifted up and magnified for the sake of the larger community. This is not the work of one team or one committee, but of the whole congregation engaged in a process of discernment and dialogue. It is the result of collaboration and consensus building, and it is anchored in covenant. It is a way for this church, in addition to its many ministries and interests, to determine what it will do as one united body to meet the needs of this very special and very critical moment. It's a process that allows this sanctuary, to this congregation, to move out into the world from this sanctuary. Not as we might usually do, in 2s or 3s small groups, but as one body, in our hundreds, because our congregation is one of hundreds. If we do that, we all know we won't be met with open arms by everyone in the wider community. But just like those people in my youth were noticed, you will be noticed. If your message is clear and your cause is compelling and your actions are just, you'll be heard. And just like those people in my youth were heard, you will be joined as they were joined by hundreds, if not thousands, of others. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen in time. And so I hope that we can take that action and we can begin to build a different world. A world of balance and of beauty, a world of justice and of joy, a world of equity and ecology, a world of hope and a world of healing, a world of life, a world of love, a world of liberty. May it be so. Blessed be and amen.
Would you just take a deep breath with me and let it go? And rather than taking on the cares of the world today, I invite you in this brief moment to simply bring to mind one person in need of care, perhaps because they're going through a difficult time in their family, or they're experiencing illness, or poverty, or oppression, or loneliness. Just one person, if you can. See if you can visualize their face, hear their voice, recognize their mannerisms. And this, then from the depths of your heart, simply extending love to that person as though it was a lifeline, as though it was a gift, because it is. Taking one more deep breath, extending that love again to that person with no expectations of any recognition, anything in return, simply out of love and care, and because we are connected. May all know that they are held in love. May all know peace and well-being. May it be so. A Saucer of Loneliness is a short story by Theodore Sturgeon that was the basis for a Twilight Zone episode in 1986. I'm on a Twilight Zone thing for some reason. In this story, a lonely woman, Margaret, has an encounter with a flying saucer. From out of a crowd of people in a city park, the saucer goes directly to her. It hovers next to her, and then it falls to the ground. When people rush to look inside, they find that it's empty. Margaret exclaims, "It spoke to me," but she'll say nothing more about it. Well, suddenly, someone who was completely discounted by others becomes a point of interest. Everyone, including journalists and government officials, everyone wants to know what the saucer said to her. But she can trust no one with that information. She becomes even more isolated than she was before, and even her own mother kicks her out of her house out of frustration. With no friends, no one to talk with, Margaret begins putting messages into bottles and throwing them out into the sea. The messages go unanswered. Well, men see her in her loneliness and they ask her out on dates, but each time she works up the courage to go out, she is betrayed. They only want to know what the saucer said to her. They have no actual interest in her. So disgusted with everyone, she decides to end her life by walking out into the ocean. But out of nowhere, a man appears and he pulls her to safety. Well, even at that moment, Margaret can't trust the motivations of others, and she accuses that stranger, too, of just wanting to find out what she was told in that city park by that mysterious craft. He explains that he doesn't need to ask because he already knows. It's the message that Margaret has been putting inside the bottles and throwing out into the waves, including a message that she put inside a bottle that washed up by him and saved his life in a moment when he too was experiencing extreme loneliness. The message is this: to the loneliest one, there is in certain living souls a quality of loneliness so unspeakable, so great, that it must be shared, as company is shared in lesser beings. Such a loneliness is mine. So know by this that in immensity there is one lonelier than you. It turns out that the flying saucer was a kind of bottle with a message in it. A bottle that had been thrown out over the vast sea of space. Margaret's loneliness comes to an end. She is saved through connection, not with some alien species, but with another human being. Now, although the device of the flying saucer is fantastical and the special effects of that 1986 Twilight Zone episode are pretty darn laughable, the deeper story here feels very timely and relevant. Margaret is someone we know, maybe all too well, someone who is isolated and who feels groundless. She doesn't seem to belong to anything, not to a church or a club or a union or a circle of friends. Even when she's in a crowd, she's alone. She's deeply lonely. Loneliness, the feeling of being cast off from other people, from the embrace of community, puts her on high alert. She comes to believe that people in authority, including government officials and members of the press, can't be trusted. They all just want to get something from her. Herself, and every social interaction proves that she can only rely on herself. Herself and that one voice, that one messenger. But in this case, the messenger isn't an alien spaceship. It's the mouthpiece of an ideology. And the message isn't a poem about interstellar loneliness. It's a warning about others. Others who are different and therefore dangerous. The 20th century German-American Jewish philosopher Hannah Arendt might have described this real-life, current-day Margaret as a person of the masses. As Arendt described them in her 1951, The Origins of Totalitarianism, the masses are, quote, people who either because of sheer numbers or indifference, or a combination of both, cannot be integrated into any organization based on common interest, unquote. The individuals who make up these masses are powerless because they are isolated, and isolated people, by definition, are incapable of action in the public sphere. All tyrannies, Arendt points out, rely on the isolation of individuals. That's how tyrants acquire and maintain their power. But totalitarianism goes one step further. Totalitarianism relies not just on isolation, but on loneliness. In her book on totalitarianism, Arendt was offering a history of what she had seen with her own eyes leading up to the rise of fascism in Europe. A Jewish intellectual, she had been forced to flee her German homeland in 1933, and then she had to flee again, this time to the United States, after the Nazis invaded France. Arendt compared the situation in Nazi Germany to the rise of Stalinism in the Soviet Union, and she also was looking beyond both specific cases to a more general phenomenon, something that might even become relevant in her adopted country of the United States. And in fact, reading her work more than 70 years later, there's much in it that is chilling. Hannah Arendt wrote that totalitarianism is dependent on loneliness as a mass phenomenon and an everyday experience. The difference between isolation and loneliness is a matter of public versus private. Loneliness is more than just separation from the public sphere. It's a personal experience of not belonging to the world at all. In effect, loneliness doesn't impact our ability to act. It actually impacts our ability to even think. Thinking, after all, is a kind of dialogue. It's just an internal one. The voices in that dialogue are products of relationships. We may retreat to a place of solitude to work out a problem on our own, but we carry into that solitude the things we've learned from other people and experiences we've had with other people, including people who are quite different from us. And at the end of our thinking, we reemerge to engage again with others. Whatever conclusion we come to on our own will get tested in our interactions with other people. But totalitarianism works by making us question all those other voices, by making us think, like Margaret does in that story, that the motivations of others must be nefarious. Everyone is out to get something from us. It's a zero-sum game, and no one can be trusted. Not even those others who ground us in community, who help us to be able to determine what is real and what is just inside our own heads. As the lonely person loses contact with her fellow human being, she eventually loses contact with reality and can no longer make a distinction between fact and fiction. Taken to an extreme, the lonely person in the grip of totalitarianism can no longer even trust herself. If the leader says that she is a snowflake, fake news, a disgrace, or a disgusting, crazy, sick loser, then perhaps she is, because there is no other voice remaining to counter such claims. Through this process of isolation and manipulated loneliness, then we arrive at a new kind of mass. Quoting Arendt, quote, "One great, unorganized, structureless mass of furious individuals who had nothing in common except their vague apprehension that the hopes of party members were doomed, and that consequently the most respected, articulate, and representative members of the community were fools," unquote. The only thing that unites this mass is a terrifying negative solidarity. Their goal is not to instill a particular conviction, but to destroy the capacity to have any. Reading Hannah Arendt's works today can be frightening or depressing. After all, she noted that the rise of fascism in Europe did not happen overnight. It wasn't a big surprise. She writes that people of the time seemed cursed with a sense of inevitability. Quote, "Nothing which was being done, no matter how stupid, no matter how many people knew and foretold the consequences, could be done or prevented. Every event had the finality of a last judgment that was passed neither by God nor by the devil, but looked rather like the expression of some irredeemably stupid fatality," unquote. People, she says, fell into a vague, pervasive hatred of everyone and everything. Now, what I want to tell you is that fascism is not inevitable. Oklahoma will not inevitably become a Christian nationalist state. There is still great power in action in the political sphere, but we can only attain it if we work together, not in splintered special interest groups, not in hyper-individualized idealism that cannot stand for compromise, but together, across differences, in dialogue and in solidarity. All tyranny depends on isolation. To fight tyranny, then, we must fight again against isolation, our own and others. My faith affirms that totalitarianism is not inevitable. My faith insists on the interconnected sacredness of all beings, on the importance of all voices, on the centering of those voices that have been historically furthest away from the center. My faith insists on the centrality of relationships. As the theologian Monica Coleman puts it, quote, relationships are not just the glue that holds the world together. Relationships compose the world. They are the world. Relationships weave together our moral, cultural, religious, lived in, believed about, hoped in world. Relationships are what keep us together, unquote. Tyranny depends on isolation. Totalitarianism depends on loneliness. We cannot let loneliness win. This is not a time to toss out our message in little bottles and hope that they might reach someone else, that they might wash up on someone's shore and save them, and that they might in turn one day maybe save us. This is not a time for messages in bottles, whether that take the form of a politics limited to Facebook posts or passive-aggressive sneers or complaints lodged from the comfort of our own homes at everyone and at no one. This is a time to reach out directly, to reach out, to speak out, and to listen, to really listen to the voices of others, especially those that are in greatest danger of being silenced. Or we already know what might be. In the words of American activist and author James Baldwin, quote, "The sea rises, the light fails. Lovers cling to each other and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out." Would you please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn? It's in our teal softbound hymnal. It's number 1028, "The Fire of Commitment."
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our hearts and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deeper and the future can begin. From the stories of our living learns the song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment fills our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and the passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, let our promise find fulfillment and our future can begin.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our hearts.
After our service today, all are invited to join us in Daniel Hall. We have a lot going on today. The choir has very graciously provided all kinds of lovely food to celebrate our wonderful choir director Ebuka's birthday. So all are invited to go into Daniel Hall for food and fellowship. But then, in the sanctuary, there will also be a Q&A for those who have questions about the ministerial transition process, where we are in that process, what the next steps will be. So you're invited to go, get some cupcakes, get some lovely food, and then come back into the sanctuary for a brief Q&A session. And I leave you today with this blessing from John O'Donohue. As air intensifies the hunger of fire, may the thought of death breathe new urgency into our love of life. As fire cleanses dross, may the flame of passion burn away what is false. As short as the time from spark to flame, so brief may the distance be between heart and being. May we discover beneath our fear embers of anger to kindle justice. May courage cause our lives to flame. In the name of the fire and the flame and the light, may it be so.